as strategy games are niche, ones set in space are very rare. However, they do exist, and these titles are the absolute best. In this video, I will show you some best space strategy games for PC in 2021. So without any further ado, let's start this video. The first game of this video is Nexus: The Jupiter Incident. Despite Homeworld's popularity, not many games were able to reproduce the same formula or even attempted to follow suit. Then there's Nexus: The Jupiter Incident. It made a noble attempt and ended up with a commendable result. It's an RTS through and through, so players only have to worry about managing their ships and making some foresight-fueled maneuvers. Next up we have Distant Worlds Universe. One of the most ambitious strategy games set in space, Distant Worlds Universe stays true to its name and gives players the whole universe as their playground. It's everything a space game can be, a 4X strategy title and ship management simulator that also doubles as an RPG. Next up we have Faster Than Light. Space strategy games mostly stress out players with domain management and empire expansion that they forgot what's actually nerve-wracking in space, the fact that there are only a few sheets of metal between you and an unforgiving void. Faster Than Light explores this idea by letting you manage a spaceship. It's a ship management simulator that also doubles as a strategy game. Next up we have Star Wars: Empire at War. Of course, being set in space and literally having some of the most hypnotizing space battles in cinema, Star Wars had to have its own strategy title. That would be Star Wars: Empire at War, and surprisingly, it's one of the few strategy games for a franchise that's more fixated on warrior space monks and their laser swords. Next up we have Galactic Civilizations series. If real-time action and 4X spacemongering are a little too fast for you and you want your decisions to be more calculated, then head on over to the Galactic Civilizations games. At their core, they're turn-based strategy games. This is a closer experience to Civilization games as it also uses hexagonal tiles for territorial management. Next up we have Stellaris. Speaking of genocide, players of Stellaris should be familiar with the notion. It's another 4X strategy game set in space, except the scope is bigger than most titles as the gameplay essentially involves painting the whole playable part of the universe with your faction's color. The problem with that is it gets a little too cramped later on because other alien factions have the same idea of utopia and peace. Next up we have Endless Space series. If you're looking for more ways to interact with xenomorphs and aliens other than exterminating them because they're probably most likely a threat to your race, then the Endless Space games ought to be up your alley. They are 4X strategy games that have tons of victory conditions. Endless Space plays out similarly to Sins of a Solar Empire, but with less controllable or elaborate battles. Next up we have Battlefleet Gothic Armada series. Warhammer 40K just won't let up and, from time to time, releases some marvelous and strong titles. Such was the case for the two Battlefleet Gothic Armada games. They're practically 40K in space, but instead of controlling xenophobic squads, you get to control xenophobic spaceships. Next up we have Homeworld Series. Speaking of three-dimensional RTS combat, the Homeworld games are famous for popularizing such a thing in strategy games. Before the series, most warfare was landlocked and units could only move in two planes. Homeworld spiced that up and even made games like StarCraft look primitive. Unlike Sins of a Solar Empire, however, the older Homeworld titles focus only on warfare as they're solely RTS games. The last game of this video is Sins of a Solar Empire. It's unusual for a 4X strategy game to also feature real-time gameplay, but Sins of a Solar Empire proved just how viable and chaotic it can be. It's a grand RTS game where you need to manage an intergalactic empire while being a fleet commander all in real time. Most games in Sins of a Solar Empire last an average of 4 hours, so think of these as periodic gaming marathons. So that's the list of 10 best space strategy games for PC that you can play in 2021. If you enjoy this video, hit the like button and subscribe to my channel Games Puff and press the bell icon for more gaming updates.